The Moreness Show with hosts Sil and Beena is about to bring depth and value into your life.
Hello and welcome to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena, and we are here again. I'm really excited. It's a bit early time for me, but yes, of course, coming here and doing these things is always fun. Welcome to the Moreness Show, Sil, and thanks
Thank
you
you.
again. I just really
Thank you, Beena.
want to say thank you to Kristen also, because he's really a doing that wonderful job and really helpful for us. Okay, just saying that. So we
Kristen,
have a
the
team here,
producer.
and
Yes, the producer.
oh yes, oh
Yes.
yes, yes,
Who
they are
gives us our
helping us.
cueing and does all the background stuff and all the magic behind the
See,
scenes. Yeah.
this is the Moreness.
Moreness.
Always the
Yes.
Moreness going on behind the scene, and this is always
Yeah.
something very helpful. Again,
Yes.
okay, so we are here and we are going to talk about and share the Moreness thing. What is
Yeah.
Moreness and the Moreness culture? Last show, still describe and go in detail. Actually, there's a whole lot more still to discuss, of course, because as we'll always say, there is always more, and this is what we are going to do. Why we share Moreness and what's the Moreness actual term or word meaning for us, because this is a term coined by Sil, and you can search it on AI also. Like ChatGPT is now very much familiar with this. And the connection also that, yes, Sil has coined this term. Not saying because it's a claim or something, that because Sil is not into all these nonsense, because it's all about sharing for him, capital S sharing, without having authority or an ego or an all such. But why I'm sharing this? Because it's a new concept. The word itself could be like, yes, we all know. But the concept behind this word is new. When we say Moreness, people sometimes like, okay, what it means that, okay, going beyond and doing all these things. Yes, it is that. But doing it deliberately, not just by randomly that, okay, yes, I'm going to do a bit more. It's not about involving in the activity just on the physical surface that, okay, yes, I'm doing something. No, it is going beyond the physical realm of things, connecting with the soul of those things, connecting with the concept behind that, and doing everything deliberately and taking full responsibility. So this is what Sil is going to share today. And Sil, I had a question last time, and I asked you about that. Okay, what is this Moreness going to help anyone, and how a person can incorporate the Moreness in our everyday life, day-to-day life? So please continue.
That's the key. That's the key. How to apply Moreness in our everyday life. How to connect to Moreness into our everyday life. How to live it. All right. Now, Moreness is a culture also, right? And just a quick note on what the Beena said about connecting Moreness to me specifically. Yes, I've coined the term. Yes, I've created Moreness-Culture. It's not about ego and credit. It is simply, if you look it up, to look it up in connection to me, right? Then you will get what we are talking about. I don't know anybody else that's ever. I've never heard anybody else use the term Moreness or Moreness-Culture. But I'm not arrogant enough to assume that I'm the only one. At least I hope others would. At least now that I've been using it for a long time, even so though, it helps when you look it up to ask the when you do a Google search or AI or whatever. AI in this case very helpful. You're going to get a lot on it, right? And it's very potent. And just make sure to connect it to me. So Sabastian, S-A-B-A, right? It'll probably come up with the E2, but it's better to be accurate. Now, in this culture of Moreness-Culture, we spoke about a lot that makes up Moreness-Culture and just what makes up cultures in general. Language is one of the things that make up a culture. Now, Moreness-Culture has its own language. And this language, though, it's not some, in Star Trek, Klingon. Klingon is a real language, even though the Klingons are obviously a fantasy made-up thing. But you can go and learn how to speak Klingon, right? In the same way, in Lord of the Rings, Elvish, it's a real language that he made up. It's got its own grammar and everything, right? It's on the way of writing it, everything. I mean, it's incredible how people invent things, yeah? Now, Moreness culture is
Yes.
a different kind of, it's not that kind of a language where you're going to go and learn and it sounds different and it's written differently. No. Moreness culture is, any language can have its Moreness culture. It is simply a collection of terms, of ways of thinking that mean more, that make a difference, right? And sometimes they don't even necessarily mean more, but through their application, we get to understand the difference. And I'm going to start with a very simple one, right? And the very first one is what Beena and I do. What do we do all the time, every day, all day long?
Sharing.
Exactly. Sharing. Sharing, sharing, sharing. And do you love to share, Beena?
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
exactly. I mean, I know I do. Now, why is it say, oh, so sharing is not just part of this language, yeah, the language of conceptuality, because sharing is a conception, and we want to understand it as a conception, not just as a doing. Yeah, it's also a doing, but we want to understand this conceptuality of it. In other words, the sort of philosophy behind it, the thinking behind it, the attitude behind it, the reason behind it, all of that. And we want to get to know this. Furthermore, in any language, you need to have a dictionary. And in Moreness culture and in language of conceptuality, the dictionary is called the Dictionary of Power. Why? Because it's filled with power conceptions. Why are they power conceptions? Because they make a difference. They add massively to our lives. They are transformative. When sharing is embraced, it is massively, massively, massively transformative. Why? Why? Because of consequence and implication. Nothing happens of its own accord. If I set about and say, well, I want to apply moreness to my everyday life, and say what I need to do, and say, oh, wait, Beena said sharing. Saul said sharing. That's what they do. Now, that's what they do. I'm sharing that the Moreness culture is one of the things that make up Moreness culture is sharing, right? Now I said, wow, if I'm sharing, what am I not doing?
I just want to know that, okay, because you mentioned sharing, but we do have a bit more than that. Sharing, not telling, and I'm aware of it.
Correct,
So I'm
correct,
taking
correct.
I'm
There
taking
you go.
advantage and cueing you. Yes.
Yes, yes. Oh, that was my question. If I'm
Yes.
sharing, I'm not
Hmm.
telling. Yeah, and think of
What's the
the difference
difference?
here. Yeah, the difference. If
Yes.
I'm telling, I'm saying, Beena, you have to do this. You must do this. You should do that. Right? I'm telling you what you must do, what you should do, or I might not say it in those ways, but if I'm telling, I'm saying it in a way where I think this is the best thing for you. Yeah?
Hmm.
I'm saying,
Hmm.
Beena, that would be good for you to do, this would be sensible for you to do, etc. I'm sharing then,
Yes.
in other words, when I'm telling, I'm saying that this is what you must do. This is what I think is good for you to do. And right there, I'm being arrogant. I might be genuinely helpful. I might be, at least my intent may be to be helpful and to be assist you and to benefit you. But at the bottom line, if I'm telling you what to do, or I'm saying something in a telling way, I'm saying it is this way. I'm making a claim that something is so, right? As opposed to sharing, which the difference would be, I'm saying, in my opinion, for me, in my experience, as I see it from my viewpoint, etc., it is this way and that way. That's in
So
my
it's a kind of a
worldview.
disclaimer. It's a kind of a disclaimer that this is not the absolute.
Correct. And it's a massive shift because if I say something, I'm trying to think of a point here.
Just
Um,
just just an example that okay, how parents, especially mothers,
all right,
dealing with their children.
you must look good. You must always look your best. You must always look good. Yeah. Now that's the mother telling the child, you must always look good, right? Or looking good is like the best thing ever, whatever. It's not in her opinion. She's saying it as if it's a fact. Yeah? Now, well, you may think it's a fact, and other people say, well, isn't that a fact? You know, yeah, not necessarily, because it's very subjective. What you might think is looking good, somebody else think is preposterous. Yeah?
But also
So it's hard
something
to
else
say.
because because mostly why I mentioned why I bring this parent and children relationship, because mostly parents, they are the one who always give information and they set
Right,
the ideal
right, right,
environment for us. We assume that it is ideal, not
right,
necessarily it is so,
right,
but this is
right.
how, because they share things as an absolute, that you have to follow this. Okay, you
Correct,
cannot
correct,
question. In many
correct,
culture,
correct,
it's a taboo
correct.
to
Right,
ask a question about it.
right. So
So
this
what about
looking
this?
right. So this looking good. If the parent had said, in my opinion, looking good, always looking good, is very important. The child can then think, well, that's in their opinion, which means there's some leeway here, right?
Hmm.
Which of course there
Hmm.
is, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's a duh that there's leeway here, right?
Hmm.
And so now the child can decide for themselves how much or how little, yeah? But they left with
Okay.
that choice. They have the choice anyway, right? They
Okay.
have the choice
Okay.
anyway, but when told to do so, at least initially, right, they may
Yes.
think, well, this is a fact, and there's just no debate on this whatsoever, and they never question how much or how little, right? And they just end up
Hmm.
following and doing, which you as a parent, you might say, yeah, but that's what I want for my children. I want obedient children. Really? You want robot children?
Okay. So what you are saying that actually it is presenting or sharing the options and possibility, and then go into
Exactly.
detail and discuss that, okay,
Exactly.
what's in it? Of course,
Well, it's
every
not about
option has
discussing.
pros and
It's just,
cons.
right. It's
Hmm.
just a way in which you're doing it.
Hmm.
Automatically, when we share, we are sharing choices. When we are telling,
Good.
there is no
Okay.
choice. It's just the one thing. This is a fact. This is an absolute. That's it. There's no debate on it. There's no opening of debate, right? And a lot of
Hmm.
times you'll see this when we see it in comments, for instance, right? Like when we do our lives on Facebook, and people will comment. And they won't say, in my opinion. They'll state their opinion in that absolute way. They'll tell us their opinion and they say it as
Hmm.
an absolute fact. Yeah?
Hmm.
They won't say,
Okay.
I think that, blue is an ugly color. They'll just say, blue is an ugly color. That's
Okay.
how they'll state it. Let's say we're having a discussion about colors, right? And uh,
Hmm.
the relative differences and why colors make a difference, blah, 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 whatever. Right? And somebody says, blue is an ugly color. They're stating that as a fact. They're telling us blue is an ugly color. And my first thought always is, well, based on what? All right, I'm using a silly example here, but we get this very often, right?
But
Where it's
exactly,
stated
yes.
that way, right? Where somebody's
Yes.
stating what is a matter of opinion and debate, really, and they state it as a fact. Now, it may be that it's generally assumed to be a fact, but just generally, when you state things in that absolute way, you always invite the door for somebody to say, based on what? And now you may be like, well, all right, let's just say we look at something that's
So there
commonly
is no
accepted.
moreness. There is no moreness in telling, because you are just saying, stating things as a
Correct.
fact.
Correct. And also, you're not just stating it as a fact, but you leave no room for discussion. And that's why people do that. They don't want discussion. And also, it's an ego thing. They want to sound authoritative. They want to sound like an expert, right? So they say these things in these very definitive ways. But
Hmm.
so often, well, for instance, I get this sometimes. Somebody would comment, way back when originally, I'm from South Africa, hence my accent. They say, well, as a South African, you should know this. And they say it so definitively. It's like, dude, I spent more of my life here than I have there. And even when I did grow up
This
there,
is
I never thought of myself as a South African.
this
I
is
don't
very
know.
interesting. This is
Right?
a very interesting point, Sil, and we will continue after a commercial break, because soon we are going to do that. So we will see you guys just after a short commercial break. Please hang on.
Alrighty then.
Mike Zoric, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zoric, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zoric has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Show with Sil and Beena, and we are here again. Okay, I don't know that it was cut off or not, but okay. Sil was actually really sharing a big point, and I'm saying sharing because this is something a bit. Yes, you can say that it's a bit more complex because it's a very nuanced difference between telling and sharing. What I understand so far in my journey with way of impactability is that sharing can only happen when you have something, when you really truly own something. I can tell you about Eiffel Tower, which I haven't never visited actually, but I can tell you about it. But I can share only what I really truly have. And this is the ownership. This is the responsibility right there comes with the sharing. And when I have this deliberate responsibility and I'm aware of it, I can never say anything with the absolute, like, oh, yes, this is the truth. This is the fact. This is the reality. No, this can be a reality for me. This can be a truth for me, but we always have more. And this is what Sil was describing before we go to the commercial break. So please, Sil, continue.
All right, so we're talking about how we can apply moreness into our everyday lives. And I started by saying very simple, and Beena, that we say share, don't tell. Share, don't tell. Shift your mind to get into a sharing mindset rather than a telling mindset. Why? Because telling, what's behind the whole telling mindset? It's listen to how important I am. Listen to how clever I am. Listen to how wise I am. Listen to what value I can bring you. Listen to how I can help you. Well, aren't you just kind of being arrogant and self-important? Yes, but you may not even mean to do it. This is where it is important. Obviously, it's very egregious. It's very obvious when narcissists do this, right? Or egomaniacs. But as everyday people, we fall into this trap because this is what the culture, the superiority paradigm culture says you should do and you must do and you're supposed to do. Right? So we can't help ourselves. I mean, look how people post on the internet, right? Everybody wants to say something wild. They don't just say, well, in my opinion, I think it's this and this and this. Well, sometimes you get that, but not very often. However, when you shift to saying, for me, just those 2 words, just add those 2 words to whatever you say. For me, blah, 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 whatever, right? Now, think of this in your relationships. If you state things as a fact, as an absolute, now you've got, basically you ending up into an agree-disagree whole logic, which is where we're going to come to our next point. But when you share it, you're inviting choice, right? I'm saying that's how it is for me. You can choose to go along with it or not. Or you can you don't even have to do anything really. You can just say, okay, I hear you, and that's all, right? There's no there's no limitness to it. There's no fixedness to it. You're not locking
Because
yourself into a point.
telling is a one-way thing, but sharing
Exactly.
is a dual way. Yes. So
Exactly.
people
And
are in
sharing,
communication.
right. If I
Ah.
say, well, for me, I like to sleep with the windows open.
Mhm.
As opposed to, sleeping with the windows open, this is like it has to be this way. I don't know how you say it in a telling way. I can't even imagine that in a relationship. But you know what I mean? It's like you're almost saying things are non-negotiable when you're telling, right? And they aren't.
Mm.
They're always negotiable. But when you start off with a fixed position and now you try to negotiate from that, it's very difficult. Whereas with an open position, that's a whole different thing. You're inviting discussion, inviting choice. But the main point behind it is you sharing your opinion, and you unhooking from the default arrogance and conceit and self-importance that goes with telling. And therein lies the moreness, right? Now you sharing and you inviting somebody to come back and share along with you, right? And now we get to the
This
second major term.
this is the very key when you say that, okay, we are inviting people, and that's why
Exactly.
mostly we get scared because we don't want to hear other people, because it is going to bring that, okay, I was not enough. That's why
Yes.
my opinion was not enough, worthy enough. So that's why now we are having a discussion, and that is really
Precisely.
against the ego thing, the ego paradigm we have.
Precisely.
Because
Precisely.
yes, when you have, yes, please
Right.
continue.
So
Yes.
so when I'm telling, I'm automatically devaluing you, which is kind of the point of it,
Yes.
right? Because I'm saying, I know and you don't, and I'm telling you. Well, how does this work with your partner, for instance, or your friends, or with anybody really? I mean, you're already starting off on a negative, right?
Mm.
But when you sharing, you saying choose, and I want to hear what you have to say. It's implied. But now let's go to the other side of sharing and say, what do I
Mm.
do when somebody shares at me? Yes.
Mm.
Mostly, we've been taught, and you can look at this too, right? Like we see it when we're having a live and we get comments, right? People will
Yes.
automatically they default to agree or disagree, and you'll see the comments:
Yes.
agree, 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 disagree, agree, agree, disagree. You know what? That absolutely helps nothing.
Hmm.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your participation. I appreciate the fact that you're making comments. But you're just saying agree, agree, agree. You think that you doing something that's valuable to us. I don't find it valuable just to say you agree with me. No, it doesn't actually help me very much at all. Yeah? Because you don't say why. So I have no idea why you're agreeing. First of all, I don't even know if you understand what I'm saying. So maybe you're agreeing and in your mind you're hearing something else. I see this happening all the time, right? So on the
Yes.
other
Yes. It happens.
side, if we are in a sharing environment and somebody's sharing and I'm hearing the sharing, what do? I focus on understanding. That's what Beena does every day. It's what I do every day. When we discuss and
Yes.
interact, that's our focus, is to understand, not to agree or disagree or get into right or wrong. Those mindsets are binary, they're either or. But when I'm looking to understand you, wow, now it's a whole different logic. So Beena will share. Beena shares some incredible things with me sometimes. And I'll listen. I'll say, wait a second, Beena. Wait a second. Let me see. Did I get you right? Do I understand you correctly? And then I'll share back at her. It's called a repeat back, right? And I'll say,
Yes.
okay, so if I understand you correctly, Beena, you are saying actually the moon is made out of stinky cheese. And that's why there's no atmosphere, because otherwise it would be too stinky. I'm just having fun, right? But
But this is a very good example, because sometimes things and their perspective and their ideas, and
right,
of course can be, of course we all are involved into this,
right,
that are ideas like simply nonsense, but we don't want
yes,
to accept. And
correct,
also shutting down the communication by telling that,
right,
okay, this is
right,
done, you
right,
cannot say anything about it, is a big
right,
deal, because we
right,
are so attuned with the superiority
right,
paradigm, and our
right,
ego get like really offended when we say that, okay, now the other person can share. It's a
right,
big threat to us,
right.
to
But
our authority.
also, when it
Yes.
comes to agree, disagree, yes, you
Hmm.
are putting yourself into a situation when you say agree or disagree, where you assuming that you've understood. And I know from our programs, right, like Way of Impeccability or Capital H Hearing, part of those programs, when we run them with people and people are doing them and they're participants and we
Yes,
facilitate,
yes,
repeat backs and
yes,
takeaways are absolutely vitally important. Why? Because we are sharing very deep points that are unusual points. They are not common points. They're not in the everyday understanding. And it's not that we think people are stupid. It's not at all. Quite the reverse. Otherwise we wouldn't, but everybody can understand. The point is we have to overcome our biases that we've had, a lifelong bias to think in a different way. So when we're doing this, the participant has to present a repeat back. You finish the
yes.
point.
And the repeat backs are really important, because I have seen so many times that people are coming and they say that, okay, yes, wonderful, I got it. And but when they actually really try to repeat it back, when we asked them, as Sil was asking, that okay, just repeat it back. That understanding itself, repeating it back, is not there. And then they try to give us something else and then something else. And we keep saying that, okay, it is just a repeating it back to us. So yes, the nuance is always very confusing, and we have to let our ego aside. Then, okay, yes, now you can go and I'm here to share. This is something very, very, very profound about the way of compatibility and its concept of sharing, because sharing is a dual way process. Person who is at the receiving end is also in participation. They are also contributing. Still, you're mute, please. You're on mute.
Yes. And the person on the other side, right? Their task is to be focused on understanding. Right? Now, if we
Yes.
both sharing and we both understanding, what happens? You end up building something new. Yes, because I
Yes.
share and you give back to me what you understand, and then I can say, okay, well, and then I explain it slightly differently, and you say, okay, I get it now, and let me see if I got it right, and then you share back. Right? Now you're checking your understanding, but you get to a point of understanding, and that is way more valuable than agree or disagree, because now you can say, if I agree with whatever your point is, right? I'm just agreeing with the conclusion. Do I know how you got there? Can I walk through those steps myself? Do I know your underlying psychology? Do I know your underlying motivation? Do I know why you got to that? No, I don't know any of that. All I can say is what the end, right? It's like when Beena comes and shows me, oh, look at my nice new top that I've got on. I say, wow, okay, yeah, that's nice. But why did she choose that? Why does she like that? Why is she wearing that? You see what I mean? Okay, I'm choosing a very trivial example of wearing something. But when it
This is
comes
what
to
we really want.
deeper
This is
concepts,
actually what we want.
right, right,
Okay, these trivial examples. Okay,
right,
in personal relationship, in
right,
personal relationships, and one-to-one relationship, intimate relationship,
yeah,
how this way of impactability and the Moreness culture actually help to transform their relationship. So please go in detail about that, because this is something I really want. Okay, not with the parent and children only, in any kind of relationship, how
right.
the Moreness culture can contribute it. Yes.
All right, so on these 2 points, right? So our first two major points and the first two terms for our dictionary of power are sharing, and the second one is understanding. And that's the
Yes.
two sides of any discussion, right? You either sharing or you focused on understanding, or you're doing both at the same time, right? That's it. You're sharing and understanding. And how does this make a difference? It makes a difference in a most profound way, because you come to really, really know the depth of what's involved. And that depth, that layeredness, that's the moreness, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yes.
moreness. That's the moreness. So you're training your brain to actually hear beyond the words being said. You're hearing what's meant. You excuse me.
No problem. So
You,
we are
you,
discussing the Moreness culture here with communication also. That okay, how it helps in communicating with other people. And I
yeah,
have really some really aha moment, but I can say that more than that. It was not just aha moment. They were really transformative for me. Power pause and also being okay with the awkward
exactly,
silence. Really, really
exactly,
transformed my life.
exactly,
So these are the
exactly.
concepts. So they are just the building blocks of the Moreness culture. There is so much more.
Right.
It is just a building block, and that's just one concept really transformed my life and also my communication. Please, still continue.
And you're asking me, how does it truly make a really huge difference? Through receptivity.
Yes.
If I'm open
Yes.
to understanding and I check my understanding, that means I can get to understand things which I never thought before, which I never
Hmm.
imagined before, right?
Hmm.
For instance, I'll give Beena wants me to give examples today. So, all right, a very specific
Yes, I really
example,
want it.
right?
Yes.
This is a very profound quote that comes from somebody I know. And when we shared about understanding, but they put it in a very specific context, which will make a good example. When we understand, when we truly understand, there's nothing to forgive. That's what they said, right? Nothing to forgive. When you truly understand, I said, wow, that's really a good example of understanding. But now think of what happened when you get to that point of truly understanding where forgiveness becomes a non-issue. You've now gotten into understanding a psychology, a mindset, a rationale, a behavior, an experience, everything from somebody else's viewpoint, which you never ever considered before. But that receptivity to a completely different way of thinking, that's one of the consequences of really making the effort to understand. And to assume that there are things that at first may sound like, no, come on, seriously, come on, no. But then you assume that it might make sense, it could make sense, and you operate under that assumption, and then you come to an understanding that goes beyond what you knew. And that's when you
Wow.
enlarge your world, right? So
Yes.
capital U understanding, when you take this all the way, you end up enlarging your world on a constant basis, because you end up being
Wow.
able to hear more than what you knew existed.
Yes. This is really wonderful. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing, and we will continue after the short commercial break. We'll see you guys again, please.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth, and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hello and welcome back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. And Sil was sharing such profound points about communication, not only communication, because he shared something about the sharing, not telling. This is part of Moreness-Culture. We have so much more. It was just one building block of the Moreness-Culture he was sharing. And we can go on. I know that because with my personal experience, we can go on and
Yes,
on and on about
yes,
these things. To
yes,
understand the Moreness-Culture, we have to, first thing is to have patience and openness, and no assumption that I do understand without going into detail.
Exactly.
This is something I have learned from my experience.
Exactly.
Please continue.
And,
Please
and that's the magic of what we're sharing. All of these conceptions that are part of the language of conceptionality, which is the language of Moreness-Culture, and that go into your dictionary of power. Why do they make such a difference? Because they're all interconnected, right? The moment you start sharing, you start disconnecting from ego, because you're disconnecting from telling.
Yes.
You're disconnecting
Yes.
from being self-important. You're disconnecting from
Yes.
treating others as less than you, which is hierarchy, which is horrible. Who, putting people down and saying, oh, like being above them, and it's horrible. It's just dreadful, right? And we don't want to do that, but we do it without even realizing it. So automatically, by sharing and by understanding, right, we're shifting to a whole other mindset. Agree, disagree, things just end there. If I share something and somebody says, oh, I agree.
This
No,
is
that's the end of
something
it.
really profound what you are saying, Sil. And why we do that? Okay, mostly what happens that, okay, we don't want any question about it because we don't have the trust, because it is not
There
thinking
you
it
go.
through
There we go.
concept.
Right.
And that's
Right.
why we shut
Right.
it down. Okay, no question, no objection, nothing.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
this is the
Right.
absolute truth.
Right. In other words,
Yes.
that when you get into that agree and telling mindset's very absolute. There's no
Yes.
leeway there. But when you get into sharing and then understanding, you're automatically getting into discussion, which means you're opening the door to say, I might not know. And this is liberating. This is profoundly, profoundly, profoundly liberating. Yes? When
Is
you're
there
in a
any
discussion,
situation? Yes.
yeah,
Is there any situation where telling can be appropriate?
I would imagine so, because when it comes to exceptions, there's always an exception, right?
This is right there, really right there, because I asked this question. It was a tricky question. Okay, at least for me, I
Right,
was like trying
right.
to be smart and ask him a tricky question, because when I said can be appropriate, yes, and this is
Absolutely,
how he
absolutely.
communicate. Even it was not connecting with all the things what he was sharing, but still
Right.
he said that yes, it can be,
Yes,
because there is always
sometimes.
more.
Yeah, I
So
can't think of
see,
any.
this
Right.
is the example
Exactly.
right there that he is not absolute in his sharing.
Exactly.
So yes.
Exactly. You can't be, because you never know. I mean, you might say, well, is it appropriate to kill people? No, it's not appropriate, you say, or to murder people. Yeah, but what about the murderer who wants to murder my children? Oh, you see?
Yes,
The-
yes,
Life is tricky, life is complicated, which is why, as a core conception, appropriateness is right there. In my dictionary of power, appropriateness probably right up at the very top, right? Because
yes.
everything follows from appropriateness. We were talking about absolutes, and our
Yes.
absolutes aren't absolutes. Well, there's one exception that I know of. There are probably more, but one exception, and that's appropriateness. Why? Because appropriateness is always appropriate. When you really
Wow, see this
understand
openness.
appropriateness,
See this
right?
openness right there.
Right.
Yes.
But you have to understand appropriateness. We take it for granted. Most people think appropriateness means proper. No, it doesn't mean proper. Appropriateness means whatever is going to be the thing that gets you what your objective is in that particular context, which means it can change. Yes? I mean, if I want to, just appropriate, I go down to the beach and I put on a suit and tie. You might say, but Sol, you're on the beach. Don't you want to put on your bathing costume? Right? I mean, see, it's just appropriate clothing for that situation, right? So a suit and tie is appropriate if I'm going to a business meeting or a big award or whatever, right? But for the beach, not so much. Well, maybe I'm having a business meeting on the beach and it's going to be filmed. Who knows? You see, now say, okay, well, it's not appropriate because I'm not going to the beach in. Okay. However, I may be Muslim, and then I go to the beach in different kind of an outfit, right? I
I
mean,
knew that it is coming. I knew that it is going to come.
I
That okay,
I
whenever the
tease
beach
Beena
thing comes.
because
Oh
Beena goes
yes.
to
Oh
the
yes.
beach
Yes,
quite
yes.
often and with a family, and they go to the beach, but they dress differently going to the beach. It's just the
Oh
culture over
yes.
there, right? So
Yes.
appropriateness changes. Appropriateness
Oh, yes.
changes, right? And the
Oh,
same
yes.
thing can be appropriate or inappropriate depending on your goal or depending on the
Hmm.
context. Yes, and because
Hmm.
again you say, okay, well now it's appropriate to dress in the bathing costume, but I go to the business meeting and well it's not appropriate anymore. Yeah, so the
Hmm.
same behavior in different circumstances, different contexts, and depending if your
Hmm.
goals change. Yeah, it all depends what you're trying to do and where and when you are trying to do it. So we have to understand appropriateness is not only in the where but also the when. Yes, we want to think
Hmm.
appropriateness over the entire course of our lives, not just right
Hmm.
now. Yes, so we have to think when we're thinking about appropriate behavior to say, is what I'm doing appropriate in the entire context of my life? Very few people ask this early in their lives, but they start to ask this when they get to midlife, and that's typically where midlife crisis comes from. Because what
Hmm.
has been appropriate up until that point, they now realize, not so much. I'm sort of going nowhere. I'm wasting my time. My spirit is not being attended to. Yeah. So you want to be
Hmm.
taking care of your business and your livelihood and your survival, and also you want to be taking care of your spirit. Yes, both. You
Hmm.
have all of it, right? And you
Okay.
need to have
I
this
just wanna, I
balance.
just wanna, just wanna, of course, because what you are sharing, it's all about the Moreness culture, and this is what we are sharing. And the main focus is what
Yes,
Moreness culture
yes,
can be helpful in our day-to-day life. I have so many examples in my life that Moreness actually really transformed my life and my
yes,
communication and my relationship with other people. And of course, I'm not the only one. We have so many participants also who share a lot of things, because as it is the Moreness culture, what you are saying, sir, it sounds like, okay, I have to be very, very cautious before sharing anything. I have to
yeah,
be very
yeah,
careful before doing anything, because what you are saying that, okay, it has to be appropriate, it has to be, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And yes, it
yes,
a lot of
yes,
responsibility. And when I'm
yes,
taking every responsibility, like, okay, yes, what I'm sharing, what I'm doing, I'm taking full responsibility. And how can I take
correct.
responsibility if I'm not clear? And this brings to the clarity of intent. And this is the
Yes,
basic foundation, and I can say a pillar of Moreness culture and the
absolutely,
Moreness paradigm. So this is still
absolutely,
what is sharing. So please
absolutely.
still continue about
Right.
this.
So when Beena is saying clarity of intent, she's talking about what do you intend with your life?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
That kind of an intent, yes? Not just I want something in specifically, or I intend to get this, I intend to get a new job, whatever. No, I intend what for me as an individual? What is my deep intent as a human being, as an energy being, as a spiritual being? What do I really intend there? And be very clear about this, yes? Because otherwise we just pursue goals and we get those goals and then what? We've never thought beyond the superficial goal. And so we tend to be wasting a lot of time. Why? Because not that there's anything wrong with your goal, but you could have been doing something and your goal. There's no reason why we can't have material success and spiritual success simultaneously. That's
Oh
moreness.
yes.
You
Oh
can,
yes.
right?
Oh yes.
This is the whole point.
Yes.
So be clear about what it is that you are doing when it comes to intent, not
Hmm.
intentions. There's a very big difference. Intentions, there's the old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Intentions don't really mean anything. They're just things we say that we wish and hope and would like to see happen. But that's what an
Hmm.
intention is. It's not a commitment yet. It's just
Hmm.
saying what you would like to have happen or see happen. But an intent, the moment I say I intend to do it, this is a commitment. Now I've put my energy into this happening. If I truly say it and when you actually mean it, it's a commitment. You are doing this, you are putting your energy into making whatever this is to happen. And also, there's a
Wow.
deeper magic to it. There's a deeper moreness to intent. The moment you
Hmm.
set an intent, you engage the universe. Don't believe me?
Wow.
I try not to say things which require belief, but just pay attention when
Wow.
it happens. Just pay attention and you'll see. You don't even have to do it yourself. You can just see with other person. When people truly intend stuff, stuff tends to come to them, right? It's very powerful. Intent is an incredibly powerful mechanism, right? So
Thank you
having
so
this,
much, sir, for sharing the abstract concept of it. But
yes,
again, of course, we will continue with the local concept that, okay, how clarity of intent is so crucial with sharing, because then you will take full responsibility of it. So, and we will continue after a short commercial break. We are going to have, but still, please keep it in mind that, okay, yes, the
I will.
abstract is so profound, but connecting it to the local, that sharing and
Yes.
clarity of intent, how they are actually like very crucial to each other. And it is very empowering also, but also very against or completely opposite to the superiority paradigm we have. This is something very interesting. So yes, we will continue after a short commercial break when Sil will share more about how you can transform your life, your day-to-day life with the Moreness culture. This is so important and so crucial.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorich, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorich, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorich has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. And Sil was sharing such a profound thing that, oh yes, now it is a clarity of intent and the connection with the sharing. Please, Sil,
And
continue.
understanding. So our key points here, right? We want to keep this clear. Add it to your dictionary of power. Sharing, understanding. They're transformative when applied. When applied. Now we add it to clarity of intent. And we say, what is it that I want in my life? What do I truly, truly want? Well, we can get into a very long discussion and we can unravel this. But first of all the things you don't want, they're going to come from unawareness. Just look at any kind of badness in the world. All comes from unawareness. Any kind of badness. You take the root of it, unawareness. Now, I don't mean that we intend, right? We don't want to be bad people, but we don't want to inadvertently do silly things, foolish stuff, and all this nonsense, right? And we do that, why? Because we're unaware, we're ignorant. So therefore, if I want to have goodness and moreness in my life, it's kind of a duh that I want more awareness, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Now, say, well, what's your intent? Well, if your intent is to be good, your intent is to have moreness, your intent is to understand, right? Or you take understanding all the way. If you want to really be able to share and grow, well, then you need awareness. So there's the intent to awareness, right? And that's what it boils down to. Doesn't matter what you want. If you want to know how to get it, you need awareness. So even if you have material intents, you need to have the awareness to know how to get it, right? Doesn't matter. Always comes back down to awareness. And when we understand this, right? When we understand this, we also understand that the universe, that's what it's all about. It's all about helping us develop our own awareness. Don't take my word for it. Just check it out for yourself. Everything that happens to you, ask, why did it happen? Well, the answer is to help you with your own development of awareness, to enhance your own awareness and to develop your awareness, to grow your awareness, to expand your awareness, to make you realize stuff, to go, oh my goodness, right? To get it. I mean, how many times haven't you been with in relationships? Haven't you heard your friends say, oh, you're always falling for the same girl, you're always falling for the same partner,
Oh
the same guy,
yes.
whatever.
Oh
You
yes.
keep making
Oh
these same
yes.
mistakes. Well, you end up in those same situations because you haven't learned your lesson. And when you do learn your lesson, then you don't end up in those relationships anymore. It's very simple, right?
Oh wow.
And learning
Wow.
your
Wow.
lesson is becoming aware of what's going on, right?
I
Aware,
have
it's not
something more
just,
to that. I have something more to that because this is something I was listening all the time that okay, yes, universe keeps giving you the same lesson until you learn that. I think that okay, it's a bit nuance there. Universe will keep
yeah,
giving you the same lesson until you submit a new answer. And this is
exactly,
something because we
exactly,
keep going into the same
exactly,
situation, now come up with a new
exactly.
answer. So yes,
Exactly.
yes,
Right. And sometimes what Beena is saying here, to elaborate on that, is that
yes.
sometimes we learn a lesson, but then we end up in the same situation again. Why? Because there's more than one lesson to learn from the same situation. You got to learn all of it, right? And that's the point. Awareness, you got to see the bigger picture, not just a little bubble.
Mm,
But let's connect this clarity of intent now to sharing and to understanding. Because now we say, oh, if my intent is to learn and grow my awareness, my intent is to expand and to know more and to really get myself sorted, right? That is part of sharing and understanding. Understanding is the same intent. If I'm listening to Beena and my intent is to understand Beena, it is at the same time, I'm raising my own awareness. I'm enhancing my awareness because it's not about understanding how Beena thinks and Beena's psychology, but it's psychology in general or thinking in general,
mm,
motivations in general. Yes, what's
mm.
important to Beena? I understanding people, and this helps me in any
Yeah.
situation, right? And when I'm sharing, yes, I'm sharing and saying this is how I see it. By implication, I'm not arrogant and my sharing. I'm declaring that this is how I see it right now, which is open to somebody coming and saying, oh, wow, that's very fascinating. And if I understand you correctly, oh, I get it. So did you think about this? Oh, no, I didn't think about that. Oh, what about this? Yeah, okay, wow. And then, through sharing, my awareness gets expanded on whatever it was I shared about, which is the magic of sharing, right? Sharing is so brilliant. It's so brilliant when you get sharing coming
Wow.
back at you again and understanding, right? So now we're connecting that sharing is part of the intent to know more, right? I'm sharing what's valuable to me. Why? Because I'm hoping that somebody listening to me like Beena will say, okay, let me see if I understand you, Sil. And in Beena's understanding, when she shares it back, I said, yeah, Beena, you got it quite right. But you know what? Now that you say it this way, I think I missed something here. And I see this little hole in my idea here. Okay, and then I fill it in and I expand and I go further, right? So all of it, sharing is always about the enhancement and development of awareness, which is
This
what
is
the
so
entire
brilliant, Sil.
universe is all about.
Again, practically, you gave the example because you are saying that, okay, yes, when she's sharing, yes, I'm a noob here and he is sharing what he has so far learned and experienced and practiced and implement in his life. And after so many thorough implementation, now he's sharing. And when he's sharing and I'm coming and I'm saying, okay, no, I'm not getting it. And then he say it in a different way and then say it in a different way. And then he says that, okay, maybe I need to change something. This is so much a really a profound idea
Yes,
of the surrender we
yes.
all talk about. Like this is the highest that epitome. I don't know how to pronounce it, but anyway,
Hierarchy,
epitome. Yes,
hierarchy.
yes, of the spirituality, the surrender mindset. That oh
Uh,
yes, this is right there. The surrender that you are not into your ego at all. You're saying okay, yes, I'm open,
correct,
and it
correct,
also shows the
correct.
confidence and the trust you have what you are sharing.
Exactly.
The full
Well, and I have
empowerment
trust in
right
my
there.
ability to learn. When I'm
Exactly.
sharing, I'm also saying this
Exactly.
is how I see it, which by implication can be completely and utterly
You know,
wrong.
it needs a lot of courage. It really needs a lot of courage to be that open.
Initially,
Like, okay, yes.
initially only Beena. Only
Hmm.
initially the courage. You don't need that courage anymore, do you?
No,
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 it's only
I enjoy that.
initially. It's only
I enjoy
initially.
that now.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's only initially. We think that this is so because we've been taught that there's negative consequences to being open. That's hierarchy. In Moreness culture, it's the opposite. You get rewarded for being open. You get rewarded for sharing. You get rewarded for sharing what you don't know about. Right? You say, well, you know what? I'm not quite sure about this whole thing. I want to understand more
Hmm.
about it. Tell me more about attunement. I have no idea what attunement is. I'm kind of clueless. It sounds really cool, but tell me more. I'm sharing that I don't know for the purpose of knowing more. Yeah,
Wow.
very profound.
Wow.
Very,
This
very,
is
very
so
profound.
profound. And Sil, what you have so far shared, this is something we need to go, of course, always more, and we need to go into the depth of it, because moreness culture is really to transform our relationship with others, with ourselves, and with the universe. And I have experienced that, and many other people also have experienced
Wow.
that. Right there, when Sil was sharing, this is all his of course, in normal language, we can say it's all his creation. But he's so open about it. Like, okay, you are an artist, just painted a Mona Lisa, and then you say, no, this is something you need to do that. It needs a lot of patience. It needs a lot of composure. It needs a lot of
Yeah,
depth
yeah,
to be
yeah.
that open. So, Sil, this is so profound. Please just conclude it, encapsulate it in few words, and then we will continue in next week.
Right. The key point that I've been sharing is that with a few simple conceptions, sharing, understanding, clarity of intent. Just those are transformative when we apply them, when we do them in our daily lives every single day. When, when we
Yes, yes.
do. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I have seen that. And this is something because we all talk about gender equality, and we talk about that we have to be equal and we have to be friendly with our children. And children also complain that, okay, at least in my culture, still that parents are coming from the authority. This is right there. If we just adopt this one concept of sharing, Moreness culture is going to prevail like really amazingly there.
Yes.
And it will transform
Yes.
relationship.
Exactly. And that's the key. There's consequence to the application of these points, these doings,
Yes.
these these terms, right?
Yes,
There's consequence
this
to
is
it.
thank you so much, Sil. Yeah, I know that okay, you have this thing and still you did that. Thank you so much for sharing.
No
And
problem.
I just want to, yes, okay, I want to say something about that. I also had this idea that the Moreness culture, it's like it's right out there. It's not going to be in my life. Moreness
Yeah,
culture is right there, right now. Sil has shared because I really throw
yeah,
some tricky
yeah,
question to him, at least according to me, a tricky
yeah,
question,
yeah,
not to
yeah.
him. But I was saying that. And then he said that, oh, yes, no ego. Yes, please.
Exactly. I want to say that we're just starting on how to apply moreness in everyday life. It's not a one show topic. We got to 3 points. We've got hundreds.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Right?
yes. Oh, yes,
There's
I know that.
lots more to come. But here's the key. Once you start, it gets easier and easier and easier. And suddenly you realize, oh my
Yes.
goodness, this is so easy and so wonderful and so incredible. And there's so much moreness to moreness and moreness culture. Never
Thank,
ends. Never ends.
thank you. Thank you, sir. And
Bye
next
bye.
week, we are going to share the Dictionary of Power, the power of Dictionary
In
of Power.
in
This is
in
something.
2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks,
Okay.
we won't be here for New Year and
Okay.
Christmas
Oh,
because it's
yes. Oh,
holidays.
yes.
So we'll be back in
Okay.
the beginning of the new
Yes.
year. Yes.
Okay, okay, happy New Year, and of course in
Yeah.
advance, and also that okay, happy Christmas to everyone whoever is celebrating. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us. This is Sil and Beena from the Moreness Show, from the Moreness Culture, and I really feel privileged that okay, I'm part of it. Thank you so
Yes.
much,
Me
everyone.
too.
Thank you so much, our team also. They're helping us.
Bye bye.
Bye for now.
This has been The Moreness Show with Sil and Beena. Tune in each week as they focus on bringing joy and peace of being to us all. Thursdays,
See, the coughing
9
was
p.m. Eastern,
not from the
on
cough. I got a bit of
Brave
dust in
TV
my
network,
throat, which was
powered
irritating.
by B2 Studios.